Hey everyone, welcome back to the Recovery Rebellion, the podcast where we challenge recovery dogma, we call out the outdated systems, and we make space for the full spectrum of healing because no two people recover the same, right? Okay. Alright, I'm going to be honest, you guys. I have been working, last week was my first week working 44 hours. Unfortunately, two people from my job passed away within like the past month and a half, and I have to be there now, and I wake up at 4 a.m. for that job, and then I don't get home until close to 7 p.m. and depending on traffic, sometimes not till after 7 p.m. So it's a long day, and the little bit of momentum that I had, it threw me off last week. But I am not going to let it derail me because I'm not going anywhere. I am not letting this shit go. I love it. So just bear with me while I figure it out. Because I'm pretty proud of myself because I'm working on a few things like behind the scenes. And honestly, even with me working more hours, I feel like I have been the most productive lately because I'm so fired up, you know? So one of the things that I have been working on behind the scenes is it's going to be this resource, right? Okay, so basically what I'm making is like a truth bomb library, and it's going to have all of my personal answers to the common things that 12-steppers say, because that's the thing. I really feel, especially on TikTok, sometimes I'm holding myself back because I only really respond to 12-steppers. Like I get really sidetracked responding to their bullshit. Like a lot of times I'll be like, okay, like I'm gonna make a video about this today, but then I'll see a comment from a 12-step and then I respond to them, and then I get in the comments, and it's just I don't end up making other content, and then my entire TikTok is just like me going back and forth with 12-steppers, which honestly I'm okay with that, because it goes to show people like this is still a very real issue. And I'm actually going to be sharing a comment later in the episode that is just like a holy shit, I can't believe somebody said this in 2025, But anyways, the resource that I am making is going to just be all the 12-step talking points that backs up the common responses that I'm saying over and over and over again. And there's going to be a bunch of links to different resources and such so that people can do their own research. If you have followed me for any amount of time, you know that I have been speaking out about 12-step culture for years, right? And it's not because I'm trying to like cancel 12-step. I've said it 100 times at least, and I'll probably say it 100 more. I think that 12-step should exist for the people that want it, right? But it should not be treated as the standard. It should not be the default, and it should not be the pathway that we measure every other path of recovery. The major problem that I have with 12-step, it's not your local home group, right? It's the fact that 12-step ideology has taken over all of recovery culture. It's taken over treatment, sober living, public health resources, court systems, even though it's been ruled in several U.S. courts that it's unconstitutional for courts to mandate 12-step meetings without offering like an alternative to AA. But it still happens all the time, and nobody even really knows to question it because 12-step's just the recovery norm. More and more people are speaking critically about 12-step. There's certainly the OGs of it, like Quackaholics Anonymous, Monica Richardson. Those are some of the people that have been talking about it for years. I've been talking about it for at least 5 now, and as of lately, I'd say especially within the past year or two, you're seeing a lot more people speaking about it, which is great. But every time that someone speaks critically about 12-step, you see the same old comments. You see the, really have we seen a person fail? it saved millions of lives. You just sound bitter. Why are you attacking something that has helped so many people? I mean, the list goes on, right? But it doesn't go on that much because there's only so many things that they say. And it's always the same recycled, regurgitated shit. And it's like they're reading from a script. And honestly, like most of them almost are, because the stuff has been repeated so often and for so long that people don't realize they're just parroting things that they've heard. Repetition doesn't make something true. And a lot of these responses, like, they're just filled with so much misinformation and like stigma and spiritual superiority. So instead of responding over and over again to the same stuff and wasting time and energy with people who don't want to hear the truth, I decided to make a spot where it all lives, where all of the common 12-step talking points are, all of the stats and data, the links, the studies, have it all in one place. Because so many people say, they're like, well, that's your opinion. Like, there's so many things that I will give when I give facts about 12-step, right? They'll be like, that's just your opinion. And there are some things that are my opinion, but it's my opinion that's shaped by the data, by the real history of AA, by pattern recognition, just from seeing real information. And that's why I pull from multiple sources, from different decades, from all sorts of experts across the field, so that we can stop pretending that this is just like a personal preference. And listen, I know that studies can be biased, absolutely. And that's why I don't rely on just one study. I want to have as many studies as I can possibly find and just have a variety of resources so that people themselves can see a variety of resources. But a huge important part of this for me is leaving room for you guys. I'm building out a section where people can share their own 12-step horror stories, because people need to know that this isn't rare. It's not just one bad meeting. People always say like, oh, just try another meeting. Like, it's so much more than another meeting. And this resource, it's always going to be free. I want it to be something that anyone can reference, whether you're questioning the program, looking for other options, or just trying to understand maybe why someone you love walked away from 12-step. Because I think a lot of families get brainwashed into believing that if their family member stops going to meetings, that's a red flag. So having this resource for family members to be able to take a look at and be like, okay, maybe the program isn't everything I thought it was going to be. Because I remember asking my parents one time, I'm like, did you even know like what the meetings were about? And they were like, no, like we had no clue. We were just listening to who we thought were professionals. And honestly, a lot of times these professionals, my parents had no idea were just other people who worked the steps, you know? So it's kind of crazy when you think about it. But anyways, if you would like to share your experience, I'm going to put together a form where you can submit your story, and you can be as anonymous as you want to be, or you can attach your name, your social media handle, you know, however you want to do it. That is totally up to you. And if you ever change your mind, you can ask for your story to be taken down. No questions asked. The form will explain everything, so I'll be sharing that in a couple weeks once it's ready. Because yes, the facts, like the data and the studies, that stuff is important, but there's people that are behind those stats and that data, right? Like, it's about the people, and your voice matters. There's too many people who are no longer here to share their stories. You would love to contribute. I would love to have you be a part of this. Okay, so this comment, they actually didn't leave this comment on my stuff. What was the name of the person I found it on? So it was on Alec Gedwell's. It's at Alec Gedwell on TikTok. And the comment that was left, I guess I'm not even going to share the guy's name, but it is textbook 12-step comments. Okay, so the quote starts, "Unfortunately, this hate only comes from people that never worked the program and only went to meetings. Cults have masters and rules. 12-step process doesn't and has recovered millions. There's other ways for sure, and 12-step isn't for everybody. But I would love to hear those other success stories from the other successful, and the other is in quotes, successful solutions. And I'm heavily involved, but hear none with long-term recordable success. I'm open to it and would love to hear it. But since the 1800s, they've been trying to solve the issue, and only a spiritual awakening has proven to work when all else fails. That's been stated by world-renowned doctors and psychologists. Oh, really? Since the early times, and the steps divinely came about in the 30s that help achieve that awakening, and has recovered 2.3 million alcoholics in AA alone, 1935 through 2017. There's 260 plus programs that use the steps now for many addictions, so multiply that by 260. Yet here you are, bitter with zero evidence to back up your feelings, and hatred other than your own resentment. I love you and hope you find freedom, but the hatred keeps people from the very thing that may save their life. Let's work together and not hate on one path or the other, but also have an open discussion of opinion when dealing with the terminal disease. End quote. And deep breath on that one. Holy shit. Holy shit. All right. Let's try to break this down a little, okay? Because this comment is like a perfect mashup of all different comments that are left. And that's why I had to read it, even though they didn't leave it on mine. I was like, I need to share this on the Recovery Rebellion because this is just blah. Okay. So obviously they start off with the personal attack. And then there's just so much misinformation, like the spiritual awakening is the only proven method. What? Then we have the unverifiable stats, right? The 2.3 million recovered. And let's talk about this. So where does this 2.3 million number come from? So that number itself comes from AA's World Services. So specifically, it's from their 2017 annual report. They reported 2,103,184 members in 120,300 groups worldwide. So some people round that number up to 2.3 million, and they use it as that proves AA's success, okay? But that 2.3 million doesn't mean those people recovered. It doesn't mean the program worked for them. It's a membership count. It's not an outcome measure, right? And we also know from AA's own internal survey that about 5% of people who try AA stick with it. So if we're going to talk about numbers, let's talk about all of them, my guy, you know? And again, like that 2.3 million, that was a membership count. It does not mean that many people have recovered. I mean, I could go on breaking down that comment and make a whole podcast about it, going line by line, debunking it. And the idea that only a spiritual awakening, like that's not a fact. That's just straight up dogma. That is straight up dogma. Only a spiritual, like what? Like, like, oh my God. And then people weaponize that belief to silence the critique or like to make people feel bad about speaking out about the program. And they think that they're helping, but you're just spreading straight up misinformation. This is why people stay silent about leaving the program, because people will always find a way to make it feel like you shouldn't be talking about it. Whether they straight up blame you or just make you feel like you are the odd man out for it not working. Because every time that someone speaks out about it, they're met with shame, they're met with blame, they're met with, oh, like, you know, it's just a program of suggestions. But then if you say, well, you know, I did this, that, well, you didn't do the full program then. So like, what is it? A program of suggestions or a program of you have to do it right? And that's why we don't stay quiet over here, right? This is why we speak up, because still in 2025, so much misinformation like that is being spread when it comes to recovery culture. I mean, even when you look at podcasts, that was another reason why I wanted to do this podcast. And it's another reason why even though I don't identify as in recovery. I'm someone who I feel like, I have a past. I recovered from what made me use drugs chaotically. I healed from all of those things that made me do that, right? So I don't identify as in recovery. I didn't really want to make a recovery podcast, but I wanted to have recovery in the name because there are so many recovery podcasts that are 12-step based. It's crazy. Like, it is actually insane how many of the recovery podcasts are all about 12-step. I'm like, whoa, so that's why I put recovery in my name, so that when people search recovery podcasts, hopefully this will come up and they can hear something different than the same old, work the steps, work the program, surrender, all of that stuff. And I know people will be like, oh, you're anti-recovery. We're not anti-recovery over here. We're pro-truth. We're pro-choice. We're pro-accountability, right? We're not going to just stop talking about these things because some guy who probably wears dopeless hope fiend shirts tells us that we're bitter about talking about it, right? Maybe I am a little bitter. Maybe I do have some resentment to an industry that has killed a bunch of my friends, right? I'm okay with having a resentment because I don't live in the world where I think resentment is the number one offender. That resentment is what gets me to post on the days that I don't feel like posting. It helps me find my voice and speak out, because if I didn't have that resentment, I might just kind of be indifferent about it. I might be like, well, it just kind of is what it is. But the resentment of knowing all of the bullshit that is the recovery industry, and yes, it's an industry, I'm pretty fired up about it, and that's hence the recovery rebellion, right? So yeah. But anyways, I guess I'll wrap this up. I do have a couple of other episodes that I have recorded. I think what I'm gonna start doing is do once a week on the weekend, do a recap of the news, because with my schedule the way it is, I think that I could make at least 1 or 2 episodes during the week when I'm working, but if they have to be well researched, like a news one would have to be, I don't think I could make that happen, but I could talk about some deprogramming stuff, or just, check in, whatever, talk shit. So I think I know I keep changing this, just bear with me while I figure this out, because I do love it. I feel like once I sit down with my mic and put these, I'm just let's go, let's talk about this shit. So I'm not going to stop. I just keep having all these ideas. I want to do this, I want to do that, which is per usual. I've always been like that. But now that I'm actually showing up and recording on a regular basis, I'm even more hyped up and getting more ideas of I want to do this series, I want to do that series. Because I did start and I recorded it. It's a deprogramming series. So I need to at least upload that portion of the episode, even if I don't upload the stuff that I talked about before it. So whatever, we'll figure it out. I hope you guys are having a good week. Today is actually Sunday, May 25th. Tomorrow is Memorial Day. So I'm hoping that I will upload this by Memorial Day. But I hope you guys are having a great life. I don't know. I hope you guys are doing well, and just keep on keeping on, The Truth Bomb Library will be a work in progress, and I will let you know when I release the first copy. I will also let you know when I have the form for you to submit your 12-step story. And thanks for listening, and thank you for being part of the